Okay, so for this month, we're going to talk about screencasting, or how I like to say it, I say screencasting sort of, because it's a little bit different on an iPad. Screencasting is when you capture the magic on your screen, and as I go forward in the video, you'll see what I mean by that. Also, I want to say this video is probably going to be shorter than other months because I'm really only going to talk about one tool that we're going to go over this month. So screencasting. Screencasting is recording what is on your computer screen with or without audio. So it's basically recording a process that you're doing on your computer screen. Some people call it video capturing or video screen capture. It's actually a little bit different on the iPad, which is why I say screencasting sort of, because there actually is not an app that can record everything you do on your iPad. Now I know some of you can project your iPad on a smartboard and then you could record the smartboard. So you could do that. But on the iPad itself, there's no fabulous app that allows you to record a video of everything you're doing on your iPad. So it's not the same as screencasting on a computer. It's a little bit different. For screencasting on an iPad, what we like to use are whiteboard recording applications like Educreations. So I'm going to talk about how you can make recordings with Educreations that could be similar to the idea of screencasting on a computer. So this is what Educreations looks like. There's the little image for the app, and that's what it looks like when you open it. It is a whiteboard. There's other whiteboard recording tools, and I listed some others in the Mili wiki that you could explore on your own, but the one we're going to show you when we meet is Educreations. So when you open this up, it's just a whiteboard like this, and you can write text with your finger or a stylus. You can type text. You can change the color of all that text. You can add images. So you can put whatever you pretty much want on this whiteboard, and then you can record it and you can talk over it. So you can do a lot of different things like showing processes, talking through an assignment. You could do a lot of different things, and I'm going to give you some examples as we go forward in this video. But it is a pretty basic tool. It really does just open up a whiteboard, and it's up to you to put information on the whiteboard. You can actually put many pages of a whiteboard as well, so you could really put in 5 or 6 pages and plan out what your recording is going to be before you actually start recording. So there's a lot you can add to an Educreations board to create a recording. But let's talk about first some of the things that screencasting is useful for. So the biggest one that people tend to think of is showing how to do a process. So if we have a whiteboard application, we could really show how to do a process like how to do a math problem. You could put the problem on the whiteboard and then start recording, and then you can work through the problem, talking through it, and showing how to do that math problem. That could be useful for students or for parents. I know division is done differently now than how I learned as a kid. So if I had a kid in school, I wouldn't quite know how to help them with their division. So maybe even making a video and sending it to parents could be a good thing to do as well. You could also show how to use an app or a website. And like I said, it's not going to record you in the app or on the website. You'd have to take a screenshot when you're in the app, or a screenshot on the website. And I can show everybody again how to take a screenshot if you're not sure how to do that. But you could take a screenshot and then pull those images into the Educreations whiteboard, and you could then talk about how to use that app or how to use that website. Of course, on a whiteboard you could show how to draw something. You could also show how to form a sentence. You can type in a sentence and talk about what are the items here in this sentence? Where's the subject? Where's the object? You could talk about something like that with students. So any kind of process that you try to show students how to do, is there a way you could do that on a whiteboard and record it? So I want you to think about different things that you try to explain to students, different things that you try to show them how to do. Could you do this in something like a video? Could you go over an assignment? Can you upload pictures or a website and talk over the assignment so that students could view it again if they're not sure what you wanted from them? or those students who are missing for the day. You can have your assignment recorded so they can listen to what you want them to do. You could also add pictures and talk over pictures to show your point for something. You could showcase websites and projects to parents. So I've actually had someone pull in a student's homework assignment and talk it over to parents who didn't like the grade the student got. So talk it over to parents in the video of why the student got that grade. You could do something like that. You could also have students give presentations using a tool like this. Do they often give presentations in the classroom? Presentations on a state that they have or a historical figure. Could they do those in something like this instead? Screencasting can be really great for those visual learners, those people who learn better by seeing a process instead of having them told how the process works. And it can also help with that repetitiveness that I kind of alluded to. If you have some of those students who need help learning again and again how to do something, could you instead make a video and have them watch the video if they need to? Or like those students who have been absent, instead of having you explain everything, maybe for certain things you could have videos and have them watch those videos to try to catch up. So it's great for visual learners, and then it potentially can help with any repetitiveness that you see in the classroom. So my next few slides are going to be some examples of how you could use Educreations. And I've talked about some of these examples, but this will give you a visual on how maybe you could use it. So this first slide shows how to do something like a math problem. So I just threw this in. This is very simple, but you could have something in and have them solve for x. And so you could write the problem and then start recording, and you could record yourself solving for x. And so you could talk over why you're doing the certain things that you're doing. And you could keep very simple problems like this or have really complex problems here. Like I said, you can use multiple pages. So you can have many pages that go over different steps in the math problem. So there's a lot you could do here, much more than just this very basic one. This shows how I took a screenshot inside the St. Paul Public Library app, and so then I imported the screenshot into Educreations, and then you can use arrows to point at things. And so I could really talk about what people might want to use on this app. So I can talk about where my account is, and then I can draw an arrow on top of that to point at it. The same goes for new books. So you can really take images, talk over those images, and then use your finger to put arrows and things like that, or to circle things so that people can see what you're talking about. The same goes for something like this. You can pull in an image, and as you're talking about the different parts of this cell, you could circle things, you could point at things, you could really explain things better for students, so they would have this video to then watch after you've done this lesson in the class if they need kind of a reminder. You could pull in maps. You could have students do this. You could have them pull in maps of different places they've lived or different places they've visited. Or if you are doing some lesson plan on something like the Civil War and different places that different battles happened, you could pull in a map and talk about that. You could pull in an old historical map and talk about that. So think of putting things like maps in where you could make videos that give information about what is on the map. Or as I said, you can type in here too. It doesn't have to be just written with your finger. So you can type this in and then talk about how to identify the different parts of a sentence. So there's something like that you could do. Teachers are using this a lot and using it in a variety of ways, and there's featured lessons that you can look at. When you open up Educreations, you can click on Featured Lessons. It just says Featured down at the bottom, and you can see all these featured lessons that are here. And there's some really great ones. And of course you can see there's a lot of science and math here, but there is a map that people are using. There's a lot of different featured lessons. And so I highly recommend you look at some of these lessons, think about how they've used the tool, and try to think about in your class, could you incorporate some of the uses they've done with any of your lesson planning? So I really, I gave you just a few suggestions, very simple, but some of these go much more in depth in how they've used the tool. So I highly recommend you check out how teachers are using this. And you want to think about, when it comes to using things like this, that you're actually gaining some tools using things like this. You have to know how to plan and research everything. Are you going to have multiple pages of your Educreations, or are you just going to have one page and talk about something? You have to evaluate the information you're going to talk about and synthesize it well. You kind of have to have a script. You have to know what you're going to say at the intro, in the body, in the conclusion. And then how are you going to deliver the presentation? How do you get across in clear, concise ways? Because I want you to think about, students could use this tool too. So it's not only you gaining these skills, but your students could. So if you had them use this, how well does their presentation stick to the topic? If they're part of a group work, then how well did they work together as a team? Is everyone going to talk over this? Is one person going to be in charge kind of script writing? How did they work as a team? And how did they do this when it came to the video? And then using tools like this also gets that technical production skill. Students may be using tools like this the older they get into their jobs even, and the earlier we show them how to use tools like this in a good way, something for education, the better. So if we can have them using tools like this, it really gives them some technical production skills that they might not be getting somewhere else. So it's definitely a tool that you might want to think about introducing to students. And I've seen students as young as like second graders using tools like this. So for those of you with even younger students, it may not be for them, but it still could be something you could use. But for those of you with students who could handle something like this, definitely think about allowing them to use something like this to give a presentation. And when it comes to presentations, this might be a tool you might want to use. At our very last meeting in Mili, so our last meeting in May, you are going to give a presentation to everyone about what you learned in Mili. Now, I don't expect that presentation to be, here's what we learned every month and what I took away from it. What I really want you just to show is just give us an idea of some of the items you took away from it. So it could be an app, it could be some concepts we talked about when it came to plagiarism, could be some things we talked about with copyright. So you're going to give a little presentation on some of the tools that you've learned about that you're going to take with you, that you're going to use personally or professionally or in the classroom with students. And you're going to give us a little presentation. And in order to do this presentation, you have to use one of the tools that you've learned about. So it's not just a presentation of you standing in front of everyone, but you're going to create something to do this presentation. Excuse me. So you might create something with Educreations. So think about Educreations and how you could do something like this. You could definitely take screenshots of different things that you've learned, write down different concepts, and put that on a whiteboard and talk over it about what you've learned. So this could definitely be a tool to use to give presentations. So you don't have to use Educreations. We are going to learn about other tools, so you don't have to use this one. In April, we're going to learn about presentation tools, so you will learn about other tools. But this is one that you could use for this final presentation. And as you saw in the last slide, it is a final required project. This is the final thing that you will do for us, is make this presentation and then share it with everyone in May. So since we're asking you to use a tool to make the presentation, you will then just come up and we can play the presentation then, because all the different tools basically will have you playing presentations. And if you want to talk over them or give us more insight before or after, that's perfectly fine. But you're going to use a tool that you learned to kind of put together a presentation. So Educreations could be that tool, because you could take screenshots of different things, you can talk over how you learned something, show us what you've done, but it doesn't have to be Educreations. There's going to be other tools you'll learn about, but I want you just to think of it in this way. And we will talk more about this final assignment too when we meet, so don't worry about that. We will discuss it a little bit more when we meet. And at our meeting, we'll also talk about some of these things. We'll talk about if you don't remember how to get pictures into your photos on your iPad, we'll go over how to do that so you know how to get some pictures that you could put in Educreations. And then I'll show you the basics of creating an Educreations video. We'll talk about text, images, audio, sharing the videos, so you know how to do all of that. It will be the only tool that we go over, so you won't be learning a different app. We're just going to talk about this one, so it'll give you plenty of time to play around with it and talk to each other about how you could use this in your classroom or how you could have your students use this. So that's all I have for this month. So get ready to come to our meeting and talk about Educreations and play around with it for a while.